We'll try it out and then we'll work on it. Are you ready?
We're close.
Hello everyone, welcome to the third Rural Recharge with Vernon Energy District, Vernon County Energy District. We're happy to see so many folks here again, and not to spend too much time talking, just to let you all know, if you can sign up, just to let us know that you're here, and if you want to join our mailing list or want any other information, it's all over here. Do we want to do introductions? Is there anyone that's new? Okay, cool. Yeah. So my name is Kayla. I'm the program director for the Vernon County Energy District. And then we have 4 board members that are here. We have Alicia, who will be presenting tonight. Al Russ, who's the board president. Toby Groves over here. And Sam Laskowski over here. So yeah, come on in, get cozy. Thank you. Thank you for all coming tonight. Can you put the next one? Oh, you want me to do this, sir? Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, so many people wonder, you've probably heard this a few times now, but if you've come before, but what an energy district is. We're a brand new organization. Within the last year-ish, we received an EIGP grant, or Energy Innovation Grant, from the Public Service Commission here in Wisconsin. And we're using that to start building out the organization, but also to do energy assessments. But the energy district itself, the model is come out of Iowa. And they started about a decade ago with this model where they thought that local energy planning that from the ground up was missing. How do people have a little bit more voice in the actual energy planning and the energy work? So they created what they call energy districts, and now there are 10 or 11 or so in Iowa, and now there are us and one other county in Wisconsin that are working on it, and others that are slowly building throughout the country, specifically in rural areas, just because of the way that our energy system's created. So we're county level, we're a nonprofit, and we really focus on, we say that we're local energy champions, thinking about all these things, from energy planning to getting education and public engagement, to getting folks kind of brought up to speed about what the energy system looks like, what the technology is, and just advocating for improved market transformation and meeting today's needs, specifically around renewable energy. For us here in Vernon County, here in Vernon County, our focus is really looking at 100% locally owned and locally produced renewable energy. We believe that that's the direction that we need to go, and you'll hear all about it very soon. Do you want to take over?
Sure. So, where are we now? Yeah, when you look at the numbers, every year, $76 million leaves Vernon County in the form of energy dollars that we expect. That is actually the energy, that's the money that leaves, that's not necessarily what we spend. For example, we fill up the gas tank, a little bit of that money stays here with the person that owns the gas station. But 85% of that money leaves our county. So that's, it's that type of calculations that came out of the $76 million. But it's actually based on study that goes to the entire state of Wisconsin. The number for the state of Wisconsin is 14 million, I think every single year that leaves the area. So the idea of the energy district is that we can own the resources that do use it, and so we can really our own needs right here in Vernon County and keep that money within our own local economy. So, right now, the energy that we import into Vernon County, This is in billions of units that, included all of the different energy units in the county units, so you can kind of compare. But you look at gasoline, diesel, natural gas, propane, these are all fossil fuels that we import in county. Most of our electricity is actually imported as well. There is some produced here, but not a really huge amount. Altogether, it adds up to 5.6 trillion BTUs every year, which is equal to 1.8 billion kilowatt hours. Just as a kind of comparison, the average electric bill in our county is for about 1,000-ish kilowatt hours a month.
Average home.
Average home.
Yeah.
Right.
Al, why is that green?
Why is it green? Next slide will show you that point. If we stack all of that use up, this is kind of what it looks like. Now, the way that we're going to do that, and we get into this a lot more than that, the way we can actually generate it here and only here to meet our needs is based on two simple things. Number one, we make everything that was red electric. Okay? Convert your plants to electric, convert your heating of your homes to electric, your water heaters. You make all those power with electricity, and then make the electricity green. Which we can do. That is very possible. So that's how it's works. We're going to talk
Okay, now we're muted on that. That'll make that better. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight is the electrify, decarbonize part of that equation. Our first session was focused on what is an energy district and why it's important. Our second session was focused on what the energy ecosystem that we're living in, working within, and this is more about the path to actually getting us to reach our goals. So at this point, I will turn this over to Alicia and I'll take over the computer.
Audio's good like this? Yeah. Okay, good. Thanks. All right. Thanks everyone for coming. We are so excited to present this idea. We think this is a pretty forward-thinking idea and one that probably feels incredibly daunting at the moment. We appreciate that. And so I guess I'd like to just preface the whole thing with this is why the energy district exists. This is why we need more energy districts or at least more local community planning along with utilities and other stakeholders all over the state and truthfully all over the country. It's a rethinking of how we produce and use energy, and with the goal to eliminate fossil fuels entirely. So go ahead, here we go. Our goals for this session are to make the case for electrify and decarbonize, and you're going to hear a lot of things, and it might feel a little overwhelming, but please know that these are going to be broken down, dissected, and these are the pieces for planning into the future. We are going to present a roadmap / flywheel / toolbox to change. And then we're going to have Maria McCoy from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. She works on energy democracy. That organization has been around since 1974. So they are the shoulders that we are wanting to stand upon. And she'll tell you more about communities that have already made strides in directions of energy democracy specifically. We'll talk about our action teams, which we feel actually Kent, no, I think it was Robert. Robert asked the first, what are we gonna do? Like, tell us what to do. And so we've been working on this and working in small groups, and we'll present this further, but all of these action teams will depend on who shows up to the table and what they want to bring, what they want to do. And then lastly, we'll just talk a little bit about how much fun it is to electrify very shortly, but we'll be talking about that more and more as we go forward. Go ahead. So for us, electrify everything is the way to transform our energy ecosystem. And it's the only means to phase out fossil fuels completely and decarbonize so that we can have a sustainable planet for our children. This, in just a moment, we're going to see a very short 3-minute video by Saul Griffith. He recently published this book, Electrify, an Optimist Playbook for Clean Energy Future. And he's got a PhD and he's been at MIT and he's been studying the grid. He's an electrical engineer for a very long time, and lays out a very, he's basically a big proponent of a massive wartime mobilization investment to electrify as quickly as possible. So I think he's next. And his organization is called Rewiring America. Can you play him? I turned off the mic. Can you turn it up? Oh, we don't have any.
That's not true.
Can you make him big? Okay, maybe start it over. Okay, go Saul.
I'm fixing.
Do you want to mute this for a sec? Sure. Okay. That's so weird. Why won't it play the song?
I don't know. Yeah, I've played it many times before. I don't know why it's doing this now.
Right.
No kidding.
It might be Zoom capabilities, I'm not sure.
Every day.
Oh no, because he's so brilliant. He's like a big part of like why the whole thing works.
Let me see if I can share.
Jolene says to go back out of the sharing screen and check the box that says the computer sound to share the screen.
We'll step out of the share.
Yeah.
And
then check the box that says share computer sound, then share the screen.
They don't have a box that says share
Yeah.
computer sound.
The box is lower left before sharing. It's not there.
Alicia, while you're wrestling that, if anybody's interested, electrification of automobiles, as you know, there's a number of folks here that own electric cars. If you don't have one, but you want to experience it, after this, I'd be happy to give you a ride home. So you can kind of understand what that's all about.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Can you go to share screen?
Should we keep going?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to.
Can you play it up there?
Now we can't hear it at all, huh?
I know.
Yeah. I'm not hearing it at all.
Try to share now. I would.
Sometimes you can share computer sound after sharing the screen. Hover over the top right and drop down menu.
Okay, so let me reshare my screen.
And then if you hover,
I don't know, I kind of wanted to just go
yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
I feel bad. He's so good. It's really there's his thing, his like whole top of the grid, you can see.
Sent out the link to everyone so you can watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we'll have to do that. Maybe you can email the link to everyone after.
Yeah, she just sent the link to them.
We'll email the link to you all. It's worth watching.
There you go.
Can you do it yourself? Can you transcribe it?
Otherwise, when we're done sharing, you might be able to do it.
Yeah, I have a little bit of information here, but it's basically talking about how much energy we can save just by electrifying everything. We cut our energy use quite a bit, and there's a graph after this that shows all of the sectors and how much they're using, and it's actually pretty stunning. And then, he talked about how we can do that with renewables, and that would be reducing a huge amount of waste that comes with burning fossil fuels. But yeah, you gotta see him say it, because he is so excellent. I don't do him justice.
Okay.
I think you can go ahead. Thank you.
Can we get a link to this so that we individually can see it at home?
Yeah, and it's real fast, so.
It's like 3 minutes.
So that's why I thought it would be perfect to show it to you guys, but oh well.
Technology,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah, every section, you know,
So when we look at our energy usage and how we're generating, not just generating electricity, but also generating energy to run our lives, we want to, I guess you can say that electricity is the common denominator. That's the energy resource that we can use without burning fossil fuels, and it can power everything we do. It hasn't happened yet, and there's a lot of technology and planning that needs to happen, and we're in the beginning of that. But if we don't take big strides, we're not going to get there. So the idea is that when we get our electricity coupled with storage and other technology that we'll talk about briefly later, it's the simplest, safest, and most equitable and cost-effective way to get our energy into the future. And also not destroy the planet we live on. Here's songs, I can't remember what year, I didn't show what year, but recently, I think Rewiring America started about a year and a half ago about what they did. I remember discovering this organization and just kind of blowing my mind at how much sense it made. But you can see that where we are now and for the different sectors, once we electrify, how much we can reduce the energy intensity, and that's measured, everything is translated into BTUs and then compared. Go ahead. So this is, we were sort of brainstorming why electrify. We realized that different people have different reasons for wanting to go forward. And so we, go ahead.
Okay.
One at a time. To decarbonize our climate, I think that's a big goal for a lot of people, especially for younger folks. They definitely want to reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. Free fuel, obviously, if you build something that just makes energy because you built it, that's drastically more economically beneficial than something that requires an input of a fuel coming from far away that's owned by other people forever. So you reduce your cost dramatically. Local rural ownership and local retention. This is what we talk about on the slide. And one thing that's very important to us is the money that's leaving our county is money that the families here can't use for their own benefit. And so, and we actually believe that a big part of this transition is the transition from centralized private energy systems owned by a handful of people with most of the power and money, and moving towards one where we all can participate economically in it. We can all be owners in a distributed way, and that will control costs and also allow us to invest in a way that we can get a return in our own communities. And I guess I should add to that jobs. You know, we'll have much more distributed economic system in terms of employment, just because we can, the energy will require the jobs where we're producing it instead of, drawing fossil fuels out of the ground with machines. Energy independence and self-determination is important for a lot of people. The ability to have control over your own energy sources and not be subject to whatever Saudi Arabia decides to do, or West Virginia, or the Powder Basin or something. This is a way that we can really have self-determination. And lastly, local and rural energy resilience, especially in this area where we've seen flooding and we have a lot of problems with maintaining our energy sources in those times. Building energy sources and then being able to produce them from the sun during those grid outages, coupled with storage, or even just some handy microinverters, will allow more people to have more power throughout those crises. So we'll have resilience that way. And then here's my graphic. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you want to count on your hand, it's all in one hand: climate, free fuel, ownership, independence, and resilience. That's why. You'll see that again. So our roadmap to 100% locally owned and produced renewable energy also has 5 components to it. They're simple. You can just kind of run through them. Tech, financial tools, policy, leadership, and that's all of us here, and community action, working together with families. And here's our friend who's figured out the roadmap. How to get us there. Oh, dang. Okay, so I didn't mean for that gift to go the whole time, and I'm sorry about that. But whatever, here we go. Okay.
So the first is technology, and this is just to make the point that we have the technology now. The software that talks about this a lot. We have storage and we have grid engineering that can get us in a place to bring more of this generation in a planned way onto the grid to make sure that we also retain reliability. We can replace generation assets as they are retired with renewables. So every time you hear about coal-fired power plants being retired or natural gas peaker plants, that we should put our efforts towards replacing those with locally owned renewable generation. And finally, load management. So often we'll hear, oh, you know, the demand load doesn't match the generation. So what we're using doesn't match what we're producing. Well, we can change how we use it to more match how we produce it. And that will take a little bit of creativity. But people respond really well to pricing now, so we know how to do it. Okay, go ahead. We have financial tools to do it. So green and public banks, this is something that's really taking hold, especially in other parts of the world.
We should put that to your mouth.
Beginning to take hold now here. I think there's one in Michigan. They just started one in Michigan, so it should come across late. Credit unions and traditional private banking are definitely waking up to this potential for lending out money and gaining interest. Green mortgages is an example. Our own WCCU has a leg up solar loan. Green penny banking in Decorah is entirely devoted to solar investment in energy efficiency. And there are more examples. Probably you guys know more examples. Cooperative investment models. So I'm involved with a group and we're working on, well, we're actually got incorporated today, a statewide cooperative that will allow everyday people to invest in distributed generation. And also would provide financing for people that want to build distributed generation. Another idea that's becoming popular is a pay-as-you-save on-bill savings, which are some people call on-bill financing, and that Bergen Electric has gotten some way with that. And it's a great way where it's sort of changing the business model and a little bit of our utilities and allowing them to be service providers in a larger way, and that allows us to save on those. And then, of course, tax incentives and grant programs, and we just look at the bill better. Infrastructure development, it's like lower and lower and lower. In fact, February came here, this is not tax, but I just worked out and committed to all federal buildings and all federal vehicles being electrified by 2030. Let's see, to try to like help the industry. We can make new policy in renewable energy standards are sort of the state way of doing it that states use. Illinois just passed 100% by 2050. Wisconsin is very far behind. Minnesota is much farther than we are. But it's sort of a top-down way of getting it done with policy. Value of solar tariffs also is becoming popular, whereby utilities are considering the actual value of a solar kilowatt hour and paying that to customers and members. EV incentives and infrastructure to power, that's coming in many different ways. Rural economic development, such as charging infrastructure and land use. There's a lot to be said for landowners maybe having lease payments from distributed solar specifically as another income source. And in addition, rural economic development, the small businesses and new trades that will be associated with energy infrastructure. Community solar and cooperative ownership models, those can be policy related, but cooperative is also statute related. So things that we can do with what we already have. So here's where we go to you, and why, this is another why would an energy district, we need everyone that we can get. Everybody who gets this and is energized by working on this, we need leadership. And that's at every single level. So individuals, friends and families, if you are a public official, cities, villages, towns, schools, businesses and organizations that are interested in advancing this, utilities, and farmers and landowners, everybody has a part to play in this moving forward. Last, definitely not least, culmination is that we can act together. And so we start somewhere. We start with the idea of we want to electrify everything, decarbonize the grid. And from there, we get, these are our 3 action teams that we came up with. Participation in public and cooperative utilities, so providing a way for people to have more participation in utilities, and we're working on that. Public education and demonstration, this is part of that. We will reach our series as well as education in schools that Andy Marshall has been spearheading. And then planning, assessment, and implementation, and there's a group of tech-minded folks that are working on assessments for homeowners and businesses, and then we'll also be involved with implementation when it gets to that point. We're helping folks get this stuff installed and figure out the plan to do that. And then finally, community organization to act, which is really what it's all about. It's us working together to act. And so go ahead, this is a flywheel of change. But we got one from the folks in Iowa, and I wanted to change a little bit. So it's basically the same pieces that we just went over: community action, technology, financial tools, policy, and leadership. And as that turns around and around, we get further and further towards this change that we want to see in the world. And I believe that we're going from here to Maria, right? Okay. Yeah. So I'm introducing Maria. I hope that this is pretty easy to get her on.
Her sound will come through the TV, so you can just turn it
okay, so I'll turn this off. As we see, Maria is a research associate on energy democracy, and we can read a little bit about that, but decentralized energy systems that are equitable and economically viable. We all started for, and so without further ado, Maria.
Hi.
Okay, Maria, looks like you're still muted. There we go.
So if you could mute on your end, I'm getting a
We're having
echo.
so many sound problems.
Oh, no.
Okay, can you still hear me on your end? You could send in the chat.
Yep.
All right, great. Well, hi everyone. Thank you for having me join you tonight. And yeah, I'll jump right in to make the most of our time and talk a little bit about energy democracy and why it's necessary for the electrification and decarbonization work you're looking to do, and how to overcome some barriers to be able to make your own energy decisions, which is our ultimate goal at ILSR. You can go to the next slide, please. So to start with some bad news, Wisconsin state policies, for the most part, really hinder communities from making their own energy decisions. So this image is from a scorecard we release every year that has each state ranked based on whether its policies help communities make. Oh, can I turn my camera off? Sure. If that will, did that help? Okay. But yeah, so this is our scorecard, and Wisconsin, having a tough time hearing. Sounds like the people on Zoom can hear me pretty well, but perhaps the people in the in-person meeting aren't hearing me. Is that correct?
Yeah, on the Zoom call, we can hear you just fine. I'm not sure about in person.
Yeah, I would say keep going at this time, Maria, and guys in the room, just mic anything you can.
All right. Thanks, Jen. Okay, so to continue on, so yeah, you can see here that Wisconsin scored looks like a D on our most recent scorecard. And this is because the policies really don't help communities in their energy efforts. And so without these democratic policies and practices, utilities are really left to their own devices. So you can switch to the next slide. I'm not sure who's in charge of slides, but if you could change to the next one, please. Thanks. Right. It's weird talking kind of to myself now, so hopefully everyone can hear me.
Yep, we can still hear you on Zoom, so just keep going.
Right. So again, these utilities have a lot of power, and if we don't have policies that control that power and keep communities in charge, they really just act in their own self-interest. So first of all is that investor-owned utilities in particular are guaranteed a return on their investments. So when the utility builds its own power plants and transmission lines, the shareholders pocket the profits that they are then guaranteed on that investment. And it doesn't really matter if the communities are in need of that investment, and if that investment even really helps the grid. It's up to the utility's discretion. The regulators are tasked with supervising the utility as it creates a resource plan, but utilities find a way to kind of possibilities, and their plan isn't always what's best for the customer. As an example, several organizations in Minnesota, including ILSR, modeled Xcel Energy's Minnesota electric grid. And we found that by not building a proposed gas plant, it would save ratepayers millions or even billions of dollars. The second is here that when rules are not set or when they're vague, utilities can find workarounds to hamper progress of clean energy, because again, clean energy and customer-owned energy just cuts out from utility profits. We have a soon-to-be-released survey of various solar developers across the country and their frustrations with different utilities. And again, an example from Xcel Energy in Minnesota. in the survey is that a customer is facing a 15-year interconnection delay for their small residential solar array because Excel is kind of interpreting the rules and putting them in this just never-ending pause period. And finally, utilities can lobby for things that we don't want with our money and with the customer's money. So this is illegal in a lot of other instances like unions, but it's a common utility practice. And you can switch to the next slide. So there's still, it's a lot of bad news, but there's a lot of things that we can do. So again, I'm in Minnesota, so I do a lot of research specific to Xcel Energy, but I'll share some examples from around the country of how communities, especially in rural or purple states, have taken power into their own hands and tipped the scales toward electrification and clean energy. So at the state level, some things we can do. You can ask candidates running for state office to pledge not to take utility money. Thanks to the work of Activate Virginia, dozens of candidates running for state legislature pledged not to accept money from Dominion Energy, and 13 of them won office in 2017. And these legislators are then less captive to the interests of utilities and don't owe them anything. You can also pass community solar. So in Wisconsin, there is an expansion bill in the legislature for community solar. It's probably not the best bill, but it is something. And community solar is crucial to bring the benefits of solar to those who cannot install solar on their own roof. Half of the population either has no access to a rooftop, so that's renters and apartment dwellers like me, or you might have a rooftop that's not suitable for solar. And beyond that, you might not be able to afford the upfront costs that solar tends to have. So community solar is enabled in 20 states, with Xcel's leading program in Minnesota is nearing 1 gigawatt of generating power. So it's outpacing even traditional rooftop solar in Minnesota. And it's really increasing access to those who are normally left behind. And the last point on this slide is that you can ask your governor to appoint members to the Public Service Commission that will champion energy democracy and clean energy. So the Public Service Commission are the people that regulate public utilities or investor-owned utilities. And these regulators can then implement programs like on-bill financing, and they can set the rules for community solar. They oversee the utility resource plans, and just generally having advocates on the Public Service Commission is crucial to hold utilities accountable to what communities want. Next slide, please. Then at the local level, which is especially, I think, important in the case of you all, for public utilities and rural electric cooperatives, customers have a vote in the utility leadership. So this has to do with your working group on utility participation, I would say. And my example here is that in Nebraska, which is an entirely public power state, member owners of Omaha Public Power District, one of the larger utilities, elected clean energy advocates to open seats on the utilities board. And since the utility has made a net zero pledge and is actually completing a climate action plan this year. Communities can also partner with a local financial institution. So if you attended an earlier session from this series, you might have heard Andy Johnson from the Winneshiek Energy District. The employee-owned bank, Decora Bank and Trust, started a virtual bank called Green Penny that invests exclusively in renewable energy projects in the Midwest. And that bank is in Decora. It works closely with the Winneshiek Energy District, which is in the area. So, and then depending on the extent of local taxing authority, cities can also establish something like the Portland Clean Energy Fund. So these are a little more rare instances, but in Portland's case, they established this fund through a local ballot initiative, and they're going to provide justice-driven grants to organizations with the money that they collect from a surcharge on large corporations. So small local businesses are exempt. Large business corporations are charged this fund to provide grants to local nonprofits. And then the last example here is that I know Wisconsin towns don't have the ability to set their own stretch building code, but they might have some flexibility within granting special permits. Brooklyn, Massachusetts, for example, has a gas ban. So they've banned new gas hookups on new construction, but it's actually kind of a manipulation of special permitting. So it's really an incentive for new buildings that do not connect to a gas line, and more of that than a ban on those that want to connect to the gas line. And the next slide, I believe. Yes, so all of these examples and more can be found in our interactive community power toolkit, which you can see there on the left, and that's the link on the top. We've also featured some of these stories on our local energy rules podcast, which is on any podcast player, and you can also find it on our website. So if you want to know more from the experts and the people who are involved in any of these examples, we have those stories right from the source. And the next slide, please. And then a couple more resources. So these aren't ones that I'm involved with, but there is a playbook, the People's Utility Justice Playbook, that's really useful. Shows some kind of investor-owned utility tactics, especially, and how communities have kind of fought back against these impositions of monopoly power. And then there's the Rural Electric Cooperative Toolkit, which is a collection of resources for people trying to engage with their rural electric cooperatives. So that is what I have for you all, and I'm happy to take some questions if we can figure out how to do that. And you can also reach me at maria@ilsr.org.
So let's see if this works. Can you hear us in there?
Yes, we can hear you, Kayla.
Wow, we should have been doing this all along, I think. Well, thank you so much, Maria, for sharing your information. And I definitely, since everything was a little cut in and cut out with both Alicia and Maria, let's open it up to questions. I'm sure you might be left with a lot of questions after some of that. So please just open it up for any questions or discussion, even topics you want to discuss. There we go. So what are you confused about? Yeah, Doug.
I had heard recently where there was an attempt here, maybe Alicia knows, for like 10 homes getting together for a solar generation project within a community that was turned down by the Public Utility Commission, or didn't go ahead because of that. And can you shed any light on that? Okay. Are they?
But maybe your question, Doug's question was about a group of people getting together to try to do a community solar, and it was turned down by the PSC. I mean, actually, we have Craig Burrows here from Vernon Electric and Dave Maxwell, who a lot of you met at the last time. They know a lot more about how that would work. But it has a lot more to do with how the utility in the area, how they can, where they need generation and how they can get it onto the grid. Does that make sense? actually.
And this was put into place years ago for public protection, consumer protection purposes. And it would, today's rules anyway, in Wisconsin, state that you have to be a public utility to, and fall under the rule of the Public Service Commission if you're going to sell electricity. If you have individuals going in and trying to sell electricity, they wouldn't fall under that. And I could see where it would have turned out.
But maybe a better question is just to talk about how we could get community-owned solar onto the grid regardless, because obviously there's plenty of developers that are coming and selling electricity to utilities all over the state. And those are private people, private ownership, developers. And so the idea that we could group together everyone in this room, put in $10,000 and work with the local utility to say, where's the best place that we can put up some generation, that we own it, we're invested in it, and we get a return on it over time. So instead of the developers, our idea is that rather than developers that often come from out of the state and often use labor from out of the state as well, so a lot of that leaves the state, that we do it here locally and that we employ people locally to build it and maintain it. So there's one point of maybe better, less confusion. Community-owned solar. What else is really confusing? I kind of want to hear what's so confusing. Mom?
Wondered. Dave Maxwell was saying that the plan is to build a new natural gas to increase our electric. Is that right? Last time, as part of your plan. Yeah, well, you said there was going to be a new one. Am I wrong about that? I mean, okay.
Part of Darylin Power, so in that sense, it would be part of that. But yes, it's a plan to help replace a bunch of the coal plants. We just lost a huge coal plant here in Vernon County, and so yeah, something has to replace that, and it's going to be a power plant to enable more solar to be put up, so that when the sun's not shining, that people can still have power. So I think that's probably what you're referring to.
I'm sorry. My question was, how does that compare with, for instance, I know in some places farm fields are being used for solar fields, and is that less expensive? Is it equal for building a new gas power plant? Or I don't know, maybe this is not even something that you know, or I'm just wondering.
Craig knows. Okay. This is Craig's job all day long.
What you run into when you start looking at solar generation, a lot of that is generating energy. And there's that other component of it called capacity. For example, you need to meet the demand at every instant of every day. Otherwise, the grid could collapse, generating facilities will drop off. So it's a very complex system that we have that keeps the generation in check with the load that's out there. So while the sun is shining, solar is certainly a very good option. It's low cost, it's carbon free, but we do have those times that demand creeps up above what our generation is, and above the level of solar generation, inverter-based generation that you can actually have on the grid at any one time. And in that case, you need to have those generating facilities that can ramp up quickly. And that's one thing like a coal plant does not do well at. They were designed to fire them up. A lot of times it takes 2 days to get them up and going, and they're not really designed to go up and down. So when you hear about utilities looking at taking out the coal plants and replacing them, or at least part of that, with a combination of solar and wind, because they do provide some capacity. If sun's not shining, the wind probably is blowing somewhere, and that's where you need the transmission. But then also with that, you have to have that generation that can come on within a very short amount of time, and that's where the natural gas comes into play.
Yeah, confusion.
So I've been looking at these things for a long time, and I understand what the gentleman's talking about in terms of having to have power when we want power. Not too much power because we break things, not too little power or things brown out. And the question for myself is how to figure out how to continue to promote this general idea of electrifying while being able to balance the technical aspects, the financial aspects, the political aspects, and how we as a group are going to get organized so that various people can dig into these details and try to organize them into a way that can be effective for the community at large. How's that?
That's great. Did everybody hear that? Okay. Robert sort of hit the crux of the question, and I don't know if maybe Maria might have some thoughts about that. Is this still connected to this? Maria, can you unmute yourself? Do you have ideas about Robert's question? How do we balance the technical, the political, the financial to work together? And what?
That's a process.
Yeah, that's a process.
I can try. So that's definitely kind of the question. We're getting a little echo here. There we go. That's kind of the question, you know, but from my perspective, I would say in a lot of cases, the technology is kind of already there. It's really about just getting the power and the people together to ask for it. These utility and market structures have been in place for so long that there's just a lot of resistance to change and a lot of resistance to changing their business model and adapting to where the technology really is. And so it's going to take just people demanding what needs to happen and what is best for their communities. I think some of it will, you know, renewable energy and the technology for storage is just getting cheaper and cheaper all the time. It will soon really be hard to justify using fossil fuels. It's already in general cheaper to do renewable energy than even gas plants. So gas plants are going to become these assets that, especially if anyone's building them now, they're not going to get paid off. That investment in that plant will just never come to fruition because it'll be too expensive to run that plant in comparison to the renewable energy that doesn't have those same fuel costs. So I think that's from our perspective where it's just all about energy democracy and putting the right people in leadership and putting the right policies in place that people are being heard and that the utilities will have to kind of come to their senses and change with the times.
We may need Kayla to unmute again.
I think Maria addresses it well, and she's being quite soft from my point of view in terms of our choice is whether we're going to sit back and let the utility industry come up with solutions and make us pay for it, which will mean that utilities are currently controlled monopolies, which they are guaranteed a 12% return on investment. So any plants that they install, any wires that they put up, they're guaranteed a return on that. Our
Although we
other,
should probably clarify that that's investor-owned utilities. And co-ops function differently in municipal. But like Excel Energy is definitely,
right. You probably know the percentage of which is which more than I do, but they're also involved in all the transit lines across state lines, et cetera. So ATC, et cetera. The other choice is for us to get involved to understand how we can own the distributed generation capabilities that are available, because the energy coming from the sun and the wind is available to us, but the current political and economic structures are not set up for us to take advantage of that for ourselves. And if we sit back and wait, we won't get it. We will simply have what we have now, which is the highest electric bill in the Midwest. As far as I know, Wisconsin's got higher electric costs than Minnesota or Illinois. So that would be my addition.
and just a little bit more of that. It's true that all of the infrastructure that's built to get the energy, the generation to us is included in our rate base. So it's included in your energy bill in the way that you pay it. But I think what you were referring to, Robert, is in the case of an investor-owned utility, there are literal shareholders that own that utility and they have a guaranteed rate of return at something like 12%. So they like to spend a lot of money on infrastructure because we pay for it and they make profit. And so Excel Energy is like that, and Alliant Energy. Those are the two that are within Vernon County. It's structured differently. The co-ops don't have shareholders and they don't make a profit off of that. They do still put that infrastructure cost into our rate base. And so from the energy district's point of view, we think that people should have more understanding of what that cost is and what we're getting, what we're paying for and how it's benefiting us. And also the option to have more of that infrastructure cost built where we live so that we can own it ourselves. And we organize one step at a time. I mean, we're here. This is like way better than we were last year. We've got 3 action teams that are pretty well focused, and figure out what you want to do. And the action teams meet pretty much every week at the same time, so it's easy and virtual. Thanks, Ken.
This may be for Craig and Dave. The on-bill financing is would be a huge benefit. And I think it was glossed over here a little bit, wasn't mentioned too much. I think you called it something else. Pay as you save. That's a great program where homeowners can make energy efficient improvements on their house without any out-of-pocket expense. And it's a financing arrangement that works very well. And I think that's a huge thing, because you got to have efficient housing and buildings before you put a solar panel on it. So it's the foundation of everything. And I'm just wondering what the status of that program is with VEC. Maybe you could tell us.
Where Vernon Electric is at on the on-bill financing, we applied for a 0% interest loan through USDA. It has been granted due to COVID getting into people's homes and things like that. And then just a number of other projects that we have in the works, some economic development things that we'll be hearing more of here in the next month or so, taking place right here in Baroqua. The on-bill financing kind of got just set aside. The money's still there. We're still planning on moving forward with it. And we certainly see some value in the energy efficiency side of things. we take Cooley-Cat, for example, who is able to go and help a number of homeowners, but they also run into some that are maybe just a little bit above that threshold where they qualify for the assistance from Cooley Community Action Program, but yet they can't get the funding through the bank. And it's been an effective means to allow that on the bill and tie that, it's not really a loan, but tie those funds to the member's home, and they pay that off over a number of years. And we're certainly looking at that, and I'm pretty certain you'll be seeing it here in the near future. It's a lot of work to get those programs put together. Anytime you're dealing with getting funding from the federal government, things get pretty complicated, but we will be working through that, and you'll be seeing that. I think it's going to work out great.
We do have a couple more slides.
Andy here. I was asking Maria for some guidance on what actions high schoolers might take that we might guide them toward or help them rally around. And she's sending me an email with a bunch of that good stuff. But basically, if we can get younger folks excited and focused on this, then they've got more years to be persistent than most of us do.
Thanks. And Andy is spearheading the public education, especially when it comes to youth programs and things like that. So if that's exciting to you, get involved. He's fun.
Thank you. So this is my plug for our energy assessment. So similar to what Cooley-Cap does, they go in and do an energy assessment. We're running our own. We have, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have a grant to do so. So each and everyone in this room, please fill out the pre-survey. If you are interested, we will be starting to do blower door tests and infrared. We'll come into your home and just check in on the efficiency of your house. It also, a big part of that energy assessment is looking at not just your house, but your whole lifestyle. How can everything be electrified within your house, within your car, your garage? Is solar actually a possibility for you? If you are a renter, what else other options do you have? So we're kind of going that whole gamut. We have energy specialists that we've hired through the nonprofit with the grant, and that'll get started in January. But go online, fill this out. You're going to get a free Emporia smart plug, and then also you may qualify for a free energy monitor, which you can actually set up on your. I always mess this up, on your electric box, your circuit breaker box, and it can show you how much energy is coming out from your refrigerator to your stereo to your washer, and help you kind of monitor that. It's been really fun to geek out and like, oh, I don't need to have that on right now, or move it around, and just kind of have a better control and understanding about your energy use. I think that's a good way to get involved and help other folks as well. So any questions about that, I'll also send an email. This is on our website. We have a new website that we just launched. So you should check it out. There's a lot of information, and we're trying to add more and more information. So if you're like, I want more information on this, why does the website don't have this? Please let me know and I will add it. Go ahead to the next. So this is also this is the Electrify. I know it was a little rocky start with the tech, but you know, this is our house today. We're using fossil fuels. My house anyway. I'll talk about my house. Using fossil fuels, and I really see it as I'm maybe saving now, but I'm paying for it later. I'm paying for it in my house, the future generations, paying for it in so many cost-wise for stranded assets and all this bigger conversation. And so what can we do to both decarbonize both the system, the demand, and the supply side? And I see that as electrifying. So this is our system now. Go to the next. This is the future houses. this is really the vision that, I mean, that we share as an energy district. If we could get everybody on board with the rooftop solar that provides just enough for their house, when batteries come that are a little bit more affordable, there's batteries out there now, folks in this room have them. How can we incorporate that? How can we incorporate smarter technology that's going to help us change the load throughout the day? So we're charging our car at certain times throughout the day when the peak of the sun is at its highest. We're heating our house, getting it hot so we don't have to use it at night. There's so much that we have to learn that we can do already, that we don't have to rely on the utilities or any of that right now, that we can take initiative to do that and help each other do that. So yada, yada, yada. Prices are going down. That's most important. That's what we care about. The technology is coming.
But it's worth noting, like Craig mentioned, you know, how because of the demand, that when we want to use electricity, at current state, there are times when we need to have something that can come online really fast, like a natural gas plant, and provide it. And what we're suggesting is there are a bunch of other options. There are demand limiters that we can use. You guys already use certain demand queues. And in addition, things like just some programming differences. So we heat our water up at noon, and instead of waiting till the shower goes on at 7 and everybody does it at the same time. So we're really hoping that some of the behavioral problems plus technology will solve that. And so we can actually not build new gas plants.
Yes, sorry, thank you for the correction. We're wanting to work all together, including the utilities and the co-ops in one kind of system, just to make it more clean, more electrified, and take us into the future. So we can go ahead to the next. Again, the same chart, yeah, you can keep going. Yeah, you're gonna have some sort of.
Right, this E losses right here, energy losses, has to do with heat. So when you're burning carbon, fossil fuels, you lose so much energy just in heat. I think that's what that's, because then it says electrical losses non-heat.
Yep. So when we burn gasoline or anything, a big part of that is lost through heat. So we're burning it, but it's still being wasted. Yeah. Propane.
Oh yeah, propane, methane.
Propane, gasoline, diesel fuel all come from oil. Propane, yeah, propane is a byproduct.
Yeah, no, it's a biomass. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, you know, and that brings up an interesting point, because a lot of people talk about burning wood and talk about how, well, when you burn wood, it releases carbon dioxide. And here's the difference. You know, the carbon that is in that wood came out of the atmosphere. When that tree grew, it pulled the carbon out of the atmosphere. So when you burn it, it's released back. So it's part of the carbon cycle. When you take coal that's buried under the ground, the carbon in that coal is sequestered, it's isolated, it's not in the atmosphere. When we burn it, we've taken it out of the ground and now released it into the atmosphere. So we've altered the balance of carbon in our environment. Burning wood doesn't necessarily alter that balance. It's the stuff we pull out of the ground that does.
Yeah, do you have a question?
I just wanted to say on the wood question, definitely agree with Al that like it's not burning wood is not nearly like burning wood is not as bad as like burning natural gas or burning, you know, butane or propane or something like that from an environmental standpoint, from a carbon standpoint and a climate change standpoint. But from like Michael Pollan, who recently wrote an article a few months ago, and it was called like, if we want to save the planet, we have to stop burning things. Like that was like, you know, we ideally we want to get to a system where we're using electrical energy, and ideally electrical energy that's not being produced by coal-fired power plants and, you know, other like fossil fuel driven facilities. And so it's certainly a matter of degree. Like I would feel more comfortable and confident about living in a home that had a wood fire stove compared to like a natural gas unit. But ideally, like that's not the future we want to be heading in. It might be part of like a bridge to get us where we want to go. But like if everyone was burning wood, that's going to cause a whole nother set of issues that's just going to continue to fuel climate change. And I'd recommend the Michael Pollan article on why we need to stop burning things is very good.
You can go ahead to the next one. So one thing that Sal Griffith actually talks about a lot as a basic just understanding is that this doesn't happen tomorrow. It clearly didn't happen yesterday, but it's one by one. As you need a new car, think electric. As you need a new furnace, maybe you just bought one. You got 15 years ahead of you, then think about heat pumps in the future. So it's phasing it out, but getting this in your mind as like, that is anything, the next thing you do, buy electric.
For the very least, investigate.
Yeah.
Ask the question. And often do it before the thing breaks. Do it before the thing breaks. So part of what we'll be trying to do with the energy district is introducing people to different kinds of electrification technology. So you can think about that before the thing breaks and you have to run out and replace it really fast. So you can plan more. It's all about planning, actually. It's all about planning.
Yeah, and likewise, it's, you know, if you're getting a new house or getting a new roof, maybe a time to think about solar, or if you're mortgaging or whatever, there's certain times to be thinking about when that opportunity may come up. All right. So these are how we as individuals, but we also, as you mentioned, need to start thinking community-wise, and how can we get everyone involved? How can we get our neighbors, our friends, our family, everyone more active? And so we have 3 groups that we're looking at and how to kind of divide this labor up. And the first is participation. So this group is meeting every week on Tuesday, and we're really looking at how we can play a more active role in our utilities, from co-ops to municipals. How can we get more, and IOUs, how can we get more engaged, understand the policies, talk to our board supervisors, just get more active in that process. So that group meets every week. The second group is the energy planning group, and they are a star group of engineers and smart thinkers that are techie and really excited to kind of help us all move into the phase of electrification and decarbonization. They're helping us get the assessment system set up, and then helping educate folks and bring people up to speed on all these technologies, as well as we are doing energy planning right now, looking at the whole energy use throughout the county. And this group is helping us collect data and just put that all together to tell the narrative of what it looks like here. And then the third group is the public education team, and that's both youth and public engagement. And we have Andy over there who's leading the charge for the youth. We've already spoke at one high school, and we're planning to do a whole tour. And then additionally, we have a whole crew of folks that are working on a newsletter to get more information out, to share stories about certain businesses that are having success, and just build more community around this conversation. So if you are interested in any of those groups, they're meeting regularly. We're just getting up and going, so you're not late to the party. Please sign up, or just email me and let me know if that might be something you may be interested in, or check out our website. Equally, if you have any questions, you can always let me know. So I think that might be it. Oh, more, sorry. You asked for things to do, and I'm telling you all the things to do. So if you're a member of a community group, we would love to present or just talk and connect. We promise we'll be better at the tech and hopefully have that a little bit more together in the future. So if there's a group, I know some of you have already connected us to libraries or county boards or city village boards or your school or whatever it is. We are, or your knitting group. We don't care. We're happy to come and talk to everyone. You want to be more involved, join that action team, another plug. And then we also, there's a sheet over here. I'll also send it out, but we'd love your feedback. Please don't only talk about our tech issues, but give us some feedback on like other things of topics or conversations. We're looking to put on more conversations or discussion series, bring in more speakers in the next year, in the new year, and we'd love to hear what you all want to hear about. So please let me know. And then our website again, it's new, so check it out.
Can you put the website up real quick? vced.energy. And I am going to make the, hey, you guys, it's the end of the year. And when you're thinking about making charitable contributions, we are a 501c3. So the tax deductible charitable contributions can be made to the energy district. And of course, we will use it incredibly frugally and wisely because we are naturally conservatives. And you can go to this, you can go to the website to donate. There we go. Woohoo!
Let us know. Thank you.
Sure.
I just wanted to mention real quick, because we talked about energy efficiency and how that's really important for, so you don't have to put as much solar on your house by making your house more energy efficient first. So the Clean Energy District has energy audits available. So if you're a Vernon Electric Co-op member, we have a $500 incentive for you to implement the measures recommended by the home energy auditor. So if the home energy auditor comes in and says, hey, you need your sill plates insulated, you need your water heater insulated, you need new vents on your bathroom, here's what you have to do. It's gonna cost you money to do that. We will pay up to $500 for that with that incentive. So just wanted to make sure you knew about that.
Dave, is that in addition to focus? Any focus money? Okay.
Available, that would be on top of that. So you can double up.
Thank you. Info on the website.
Cool, that's great.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you involved in the Energy District real soon.
And thanks all that happened already and super involved. So thank you. Bye guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, Maria. Thank you, Maria. You were awesome.